Driving to Alaska is a road trip on many adventurers' bucket lists, and today I want to share with you the top 11 can't-miss stops on your drive to Alaska. Welcome to Alaska! The Alaska Highway is quite a journey, especially if you're starting in the lower 48 like I was. I drove from Minnesota to Alaska in the summer of 2023. Now, the official Alaska Highway does not start until you reach Dawson Creek, Canada. Dawson Creek is in British Columbia. It's a little bit north of the Jasper National Park area, and it's a pretty drive to get to that. There's many different ways to get to the start of the Alaska Highway, but I took the Rocky Mountain route and thought it was wonderful. So if you have the option to drive through Banff and Jasper and the Icefields Parkway on your way, go ahead and do that. But today we're going to focus on the stops that are specifically along the Alaska Highway. The Alaska Highway runs for 1,387 miles from Dawson Creek in British Columbia, Canada, all the way up to Delta Junction in Alaska. The Alaska Highway was built mostly by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There was no way to get all the way to Alaska, and so they already had roads up to Dawson Creek, so the U.S. Army started there. So they worked with the Canadian government to make this happen, and they worked on building that road, and it was completed in November of 1942. It wasn't open to the public until 1948, so originally it was just for the military, although there were a few people that gained permission to drive on that road before it was officially open, but tourists were able to start using it, or just people who are moving through, trying to drive back home, things like that, in 1948. And originally I hear that the Alaska Highway was a pretty rough road, but by the time I drove it in 2023, there have been a lot of updates. Now, there were a few spots that were rough, specifically after getting into Alaska. There was a lot of road construction and potholes and issues that I was going around, but the majority of this road was very easy to travel through. I drove it in a Toyota Tacoma with a truck camper, and the Toyota Tacoma is equipped to go off-road. But I didn't need that. I could have easily driven this in a regular passenger vehicle, and I saw plenty of full-size RVs and cars and motorcycles, and everyone was kind of on this road. So really all you need is a spirit of adventure, a little bit of preparedness. You are going to be driving through some remote areas, so make sure you have a spare tire and know how to change your tire, and just make sure that you're ready to spend a little bit of time on the side of the road if something were to happen to your car. So make sure you have water and food and things like that. And then I also recommend that you pick up a Milepost guidebook. It's kind of the cliche book that everyone driving to Alaska should have. And I did use mine quite a bit. So there's not always internet service along this road and things like that. And the Milepost is a step-by-step, mile-by-mile guide. So you can look up where the next gas station is, make sure you have plenty of gas to get between places. But the gas stations were pretty regular. So it lets you know what gas stations are, where lodging is, camping, even some hiking trails, things like that. And it was well worth it to have that riding in my car so that I could reach over and look and see what was coming up next, especially when I was in those areas where I didn't have cell service. All right, so if you're prepared and ready to go, let's start talking about those 11 spots that you have to stop on your drive to Alaska. The first stop is kind of another classic touristy location. If you're going to drive all the way up to Alaska, you should stop at Milepost 0 and take a picture at the historic Milepost sign to commemorate your journey on the way north. Glia and I pulled into the parking lot. It was a nice, easy, quick photo op, and then we got back on the road. Just be aware that the historic official start of the Alaska Highway is a little bit off from that. It's about a block away, and you can go drive and see that too. But the sign that most people take a picture of is going to be kind of right where your GPS would take you as you go through Dawson Creek. And it's off a roundabout, really easy to get to. So stop and take your picture. It's a fun spot to stop. It's the Alaskan Highway. Number 2 on my list is a nice campground. So if you're like me and you're kind of budget minded and you're traveling a little bit more set for boondocking and overlanding and things like that, free campsites are wonderful to find. And Inga Lake Campground is a wonderful stop that is free, has picnic tables and pit toilet. It really feels a little bit like luxury for the price. It's also right on a lake, and so it's nice and peaceful. The people there were great while I was there. I've seen some reviews that have said they've seen it used as a party spot, but I mostly had families around while I was there. It is on a little bit of a rough road off of the Alaska Highway to get to it, The turnoff for the campground is about 90 miles away from Dawson City, 144 kilometers. And if you're traveling north, you're going to take a left onto that road, drive approximately 2 kilometers down a gravel road, and then you'll get to the campground. Plenty of sites. The ones by the lake were taken when I was there both times, but plenty of other sites to choose from. It's a nice stop if you're looking for a good little campground off the side of the road.
Leah and I are at Inga Lake Campground tonight, which is a lovely little campground with plenty of open spots when we pulled in a little after 7 p.m. It's off the Alaskan Highway and it's near the Pink Mountain area, just a little bit before. I'll have to check the actual mile marker. But we've got this lovely site. We're not on the lake. Those spots were filled, but it's a really peaceful spot. It's even got a picnic table in the back and pretty private. So we're awful happy to have a nice spot. There's a fire ban in effect here, but don't see any wildfire smoke yet. We did have some warnings on the road today, but we're excited to tuck in and enjoy this nice area.
Stop number 3 is only for those of you with 4x4 vehicles. Sikanni Chief Falls is a protected area that is down a pretty rough road. It's a service road, and so part of it is easy, but the drive actually into the parking lot for the waterfall area is potholy. And I mean, I saw a regular van getting down there, so it's doable, but mostly you're going to want to have a little clearance to get down that road. Sikanni Chief Falls is beautiful. It is a short hike out to the falls, but it's peaceful and quiet. And we even saw some mountain goats there, and it was a really great spot. And to top it off, this is another spot that you can free camp. So there's dispersed camping up near the trailhead, and there is one outhouse there. So you even have a toilet while you're there, which is awesome. There were about 4 other groups camped there when I drove in, and it was a nice, peaceful, quiet area. And I was really happy to find another fantastic free campsite along the Alaska Highway. So check out Sikanni Chief Falls if you have a vehicle that you want to take down a little bit rougher road, and if you're looking for a little quiet and peace off the side of the Alaska Highway. Stop number 4 is the Tetsa River Lodge, which has the best cinnamon buns in the galactic universe. At least that's their slogan. And I did think those cinnamon buns were amazing. Glia and I did stop and we got a cinnamon bun. It looks like a nice lodge. We didn't do much else there, but we got that cinnamon bun and it is huge, like the size of my head. Delicious. It was our dinner for the day. Quite an indulgent dinner, but absolutely wonderful. So if you're driving by and you're on your way to Alaska, it's right off on your left if you're driving north. Make a stop, buy a cinnamon bun. They're baked fresh all day long. But we were told that we had to stop at Tetsa Lodge to get a cinnamon bun. Apparently they're very good and we're excited to try it. Let's take a look at what we got. Oh yeah, that looks yummy. Excited for a little bit treat. I'll let you know if it's any good, but from the smell of it, it's going to be amazing. It is delicious, and we're going to share a little bit with Glia in her topple. There you go, Glee. Oh yeah, she thinks it's good too. Stop number 5. Now we're getting to some of the most beautiful areas on the whole Alaska Highway route. So specifically this area, and then there'll be one we'll talk about a little bit further, are just starting to get scenic and mountains, and it's just what you want that drive to be when you imagine it in your head. Stop 5 is Stone Mountain Provincial Park. Stone Mountain Provincial Park is part of the Northern Rockies, and it has some great development. So there's a campground you can stay at. It is $20 a night and it needs to be in cash. So make sure that you have Canadian cash with you if you plan to stop at those campgrounds. We did arrive to some stormy rain, thunder, lightning, but it seems to be resolving already. And we're going to go register for a campsite. We're at the Summit Lake Campground in Stone Mountain Provincial Park. My favorite part about this campground area is that there were a couple of really nice hiking trails right off of it. So Flower Springs Trail and the Summit Peak Trail. Flower Springs Trail is a 5.7 kilometer round trip trail that includes views of alpine lakes, flowers, and waterfalls. The waterfalls are a little bit in the distance, but you can get up and close to the alpine lakes and the flowers. This trail can start from the campground. You connect it, so like you go campground, Summit Lake Trail, and then to Flower Springs Trail, or there's a radio tower decommissioned road that you can walk up also. Off of the radio tower road, you get to the trailhead, and it's a really nice, well-marked trail. Glee and I hiked it in the rain, so maybe a little less beautiful than it could have been, but it was still a really nice hike, and we would love to repeat it sometime in dry weather. The Summit Peak Trail is across the road from the campground, and so that one you can also just walk over to. It's a really nice trail too. We didn't hike it on our way up. The creek crossing that you do to get over to it was a little flooded after all of the rain. But on our way back, that same creek was almost dry. Like our feet didn't get wet at all. And so just know that there's a little bit of seasonality there. I think that river would be very crossable if I wasn't hiking with a dog or if I hadn't been drenched the day before and was willing to be wet from like most of the hike. But I did it in the dry weather. So Kluane and I had attempted this trail when it was raining. And this river crossing was kind of intimidating. And today it's like, okay, we're just gonna stroll through some pebbles. So just amazing what a difference the weather can make. As there Kluane is, it's gonna be a really easy crossover. But this was raging last time we came through. So now it also can be really windy. So on our second attempt, Glee and I didn't make it quite all the way as far as we wanted to go because the wind was getting so strong. We were feeling like we were getting like blown over off the side of the mountain. Well, this might be as high as we go. The wind gusts up here are pushing us around. But we still got up and got gorgeous views. So highly, highly recommend those two trails in Stone Mountain Provincial Park. There are several other trails too, and my full blog post has them all described, so feel free to head over there if you're interested in hiking at Stone Mountain Provincial Park. I did not describe the backcountry hikes, just the front country ones, but you can backcountry hike there too. So if you're into that, consider a longer stop at Stone Mountain Provincial Park. Stop number 6 is another provincial park, Muncho Lake. Muncho Lake is famous for the stunning jade-colored lake that you're going to be driving along. So whether or not you actually stop in this park, you'll see that lake right off the side of the Alaska Highway. The lake has 12 kilometers of jade-colored water that's tinted green by the minerals that are there. And it also provides a home to like lake trout, Arctic grayling, bull trout, whitefish. So if you're a fisherman, that could be a nice spot too. We didn't camp here. There are 2 campgrounds. They filled up a little bit faster than the Summit Lake one. So just be aware you may need to get there earlier or make a reservation for those. There are some reservable sites in Muncho Lake. And then there are several hiking trails here too. We hiked the Mineral Licks Trail, which is really short. We wanted to go out there to see if we could see some wildlife, which we didn't. But you can sometimes see like mountain goats and deer and stuff licking the salt at Mineral Lick. And then we also did the Stone Sheep Trail. Also still didn't see any sheep, but that's a really fun trail. So you head up like an alluvial fan. And then it narrows down and you can pick which side you want to walk up. And so it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure. And the description's a little bit vague, but it was really fun wandering around in that area and going as far as we could and then turning around. Again, descriptions of the hikes are on the website, so feel free to check that out if you're interested in more details. Stop number 7 is a really fun, unique one, Liard Hot Springs. So this hot springs is one of the largest hot springs in Canada. It's actually the second largest in Canada. It's right off the road to the Alaska Highway. They've got a little provincial park there as well. There's a campground that you can camp in, but be aware, that one fills up super fast. There's an overflow lot if you want to pay for parking in their parking lot across the way, or you can just buy a day pass, head in and use the hot springs and then head out, which is the option that I did. So you have to pay $5 for an adult, $3 for children, and $10 for a family. At least that was the 2023 prices. It's open year round. And they do allow you to leave your dog in the car while you go in, weather permitting. So that worked out really nice for me because dogs are not allowed in the hot springs. So Glia hung out in the car. We hiked earlier in the day, got her tired, and then I got to go relax in the hot springs. So the hot springs there are a range of temperature, anything from 107 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit in the main pool that you're allowed in. And you kind of go in, they've got a little changing area and a platform. The area is gated off from wildlife, so that's kind of nice too. I guess they had some bear problems at one point. And then you can enter in the pool and spend as much time as you want and then walk back out. So it is a lovely spot. Hot springs are great. And this one was a nice natural one. Stop number 8 is the Signpost Forest in Watson Lake. There's something so cool about seeing so many signs posted by travelers on the Alaska Highway. It's just a real feel of like community when you're there. And if you plan ahead, you should bring your own sign and post it too. The Signpost Forest was started during the construction of the Alaska Highway. There was a U.S. soldier. His name was Carl K. Lindley. So he was injured and he spent some time in Watson Lake. And his job was to repair and erect some of the directional signposts in that area. And while he was working on that, he added a signpost to his hometown of Danville, Illinois. And after that, more and more people started adding, and now it's a fun tradition Today, there are over 100,000 signs, and all travelers are encouraged to post their own. So bring one with you and post it, or make one along your way. Stop number 9 is Whitehorse. Whitehorse is the capital and largest community in the Yukon, and it's worth a stop. With over 2/3 of the Yukon population living within the Whitehorse municipality, it's a little bit of a center for good restaurants, and it's a spot to grocery shop and fill up gas and do all of that. On my way out, I drove just kind of through it, got groceries, and kept going. On my way back, I stopped and we walked around downtown, stopped at a food truck and got some food. Glee and I walked by the river. There's a lot of trails in this area too if you want to stop and spend longer. It's a nice hiking area and just a fun community. So make a stop in the capital of the Yukon. Stop number 10 was the other most beautiful part of this drive, Kluane National Park.
Drive is getting stunning. I don't know how well you can see those mountains through the haze, but it's beautiful.
Kluane National Park is gorgeous from the road, but I highly recommend that you also spend some time in it.
Oh my goodness, we just made it to Kluane National Park and it is beautiful. We found a campsite first and the campground's nice. There were plenty of open spots. And then we thought we'd walk down from the campground to the lake area, to Kathleen Lake, and it's just gorgeous.
So on our way up, Glee and I stopped at the Kathleen Lake area, which is just a little bit off the Alaska Highway. And we camped at that campground, which was lovely. And we hiked part of King's Throne Trail, which it was cloudy and the hike was a little difficult. So we didn't go the whole way because our views were obscured, but still was a fun trail, quite an adventurous one. And Kathleen Lake itself is gorgeous, just a beautiful area. So if you don't want to hike up, you can also walk along the lake, and that's a much more leisurely stroll. And then you get to other parts of the Kluane National Park right off the side of the Alaska Highway as you continue your drive north. It was so beautiful. And I was a little on a time crunch by the time I got here. I had to pick up a friend in Alaska by July 26th, and I was getting close to my deadline. So I didn't hike as much as I wanted to in this area, but there are also several fun trails on the further north part of Kluane National Park. And so again, they're in the blog post if you're curious about it, but gorgeous, gorgeous area. And finally, number 11, the Alaska border. So I know this isn't really a stop and you have to go through customs, but it is just, it's one of the best parts because you made it. Like at this point, you're crossing the border, you made your whole drive, you're in Alaska, and it's just a good spot. It was a memorable moment. After you get into Alaska, the rest of the road, it's a little rough. It's not as scenic. It's still nice. Like you're still driving in remote, beautiful areas of the world, but it's a little less shock and awe. Once you cross the border, it is still another 200 miles to Delta Junction. And I did stop at a recreation area along that way. Moon Lake was nice. I saw some wildlife. There were some moose along the side of the road. So that drive is still great. But honestly, once you cross the border, the best parts of Alaska are beyond the Alaska Highway. So you can take a right after you get to Tok, and you can drive to Chicken, and then back into Canada. You can go to Dawson City and up the Dempster Highway. Highly recommend the Dempster Highway. Or you can keep driving straight and you can go to Fairbanks. And from Fairbanks, you could choose to go north and go to the Dalton Highway, or you could keep going around to Denali National Park. Or you can take a left on the road on your first major junction, and you can drive down towards Valdez and Wrangell St. Elias National Park. Glee and I camped on the Nebesna Road, which was really fun, and then drove on to Anchorage to pick up our friend. There are so many beautiful areas in Alaska that you just can't go wrong no matter which direction you go. But if you want to do the official Alaska Highway, drive to the Delta Junction and then decide where you're going from there. All right, I hope all of you who are considering a drive up to Alaska do it and enjoy it. It is an amazing journey. And no matter where you stop and what you see, it'll be a bucket list adventure for sure. Thanks for watching and enjoy your adventures.